talking to Stephen, and Stephen has a just amazing story with his Bee Venom Therapy. He's treating for Lyme disease, and so I want to really just let him go ahead and talk about his journey, what he's doing, how he's doing, and then afterwards we can open it up to some questions, and we have some questions here as well. So go ahead, Stephen. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you. I want to thank you, Trish, and Jason for doing this, because this is awesome to bring this awareness to people, and hopefully a lot of people get this, see this, because I know this is going to be archived. So I hope it really gets out to people.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna try not to make this too long. I can kind of go on tangents and back and forth, so I kind of got a list here of little marks, so hopefully I keep on track. But it really started beginning of summer of 2016. My family and some other families got together in a central point to meet to go camping. We had a camping trip in Northern Virginia, and I forget the name of the park. But anyway, as you know, that's a hotbed for Lyme disease. And around that time, the ticks are just crazy. So I got bit, and not only me, but my family got bit. We took our dogs. We were pulling ticks off him. And before this, mind you, I've gotten bit by ticks. I grew up in Florida, and I've been bit in Florida a few times and just pulled them off, never thought anything of it. So anyway, this time though, I got bit, and I didn't notice I got bit. I had one embedded in my left ankle, and I didn't even notice it was there until I got back from the trip, like about 2 days later. And I saw it, and I pulled it off, didn't think anything of it. A few days later, I got a rash, and it looked like a bullseye. And I was very unfamiliar with Lyme disease. My wife was pretty familiar though, and she said, "That's Lyme disease. That bullseye rash, you've got Lyme disease." So I was like, well, all right. And I didn't have a primary physician at the time, so I went to the urgent care the next day, and they showed them. They went ahead and gave me some antibiotics, and they tested me for Lyme disease right then. And that came back negative. It was just too soon, apparently. So I did the 2 weeks of antibiotics. I believe it was doxycycline. I'm not really sure. I wasn't even really worried about it. I figured the antibiotics would take care of it, so I didn't think anything of it. And about a month after that, I started getting, I've always had migraines, and I have the migraines that come with the aura, where it's like your vision is affected about a half hour before the pain hits. So I would get those periodically. Some years I wouldn't get them at all, and the years that I did get them, I get one or two. I started getting them weekly about a month after this, and I didn't think it was related. I had forgot about the tick bite. And then shortly after that, my vision started getting real blurry. And so I went, and I was like, I need glasses. So I went to go get glasses. And then shortly after that, my knees started hurting when I was walking upstairs at work. And I was like, man, they're not lying. Once you hit over 40, it's just everything starts coming on. So that's just what I figured it was. I was just getting old. And so this went on for about a year. And I remember I went to a friend's daughter was graduating high school. So she was having a little get together, and I went there, and I went to play volleyball, and I felt something was off. I came down, I jumped up, my very first jump, came down, and I hurt my left knee pretty bad. And I just nursed it at home. At this time, I never really went to the doctors unless it was something extreme. And so I kind of just nursed it at home. And it was taking a long time to heal. And I remember about a month after I heard it, I was at work, and I was walking towards my truck. And I was like, you know what? It feels better. I'm going to go ahead and jog to my truck. And I went to jog, and it was right then, it was this very foreign feeling. It felt like my brain and my legs just were not connecting. And I was like, dude, this is really weird. And so it just kind of got a little bit worse over the next couple of weeks. And I became very concerned. And so I did a bunch of research online, and my results came back for the symptoms I was having. The 3 results that kept coming back were MS, Parkinson's, and ALS. I wasn't even very aware of ALS. I was so unaware of what ALS was that I thought MS was the worst one. And I was like, that's the one I don't want. So um, I was doing more research, and then I came across Lyme disease, and they said that this can mimic these three diseases plus a whole bunch of other diseases. So then I remembered that I got bit by this tick, and I was like, this is what it's got to be, because I started, everything started happening progressively after I got bit by this tick.
So at this point, you're having muscle pain, joint pain, problems walking from your brain to your
yes, that was the most concerning.
Massive migraines, vision issues. Yep. Okay,
yeah.
So you're like about a year and a half in.
Yes, after getting bit by that tick, it was about almost exactly a year from when I got bit to when I hurt my knee. Okay. And then it was another month after that to where the walking issues, and that's when then I did research and I found out about Lyme, and I pretty much knew. I was like, it's Lyme. The only person treating Lyme that I could find though was a neurologist, and he was a bit of an eccentric guy from the people that I had talked to. So I went to him and I got one of his PAs, and they tested me for all kinds. I think I gave like 20 vials of blood that day. But while I was waiting, I read about Stephen Buhner and his herbal protocol. So I went on that right away. And I didn't notice any difference while I was on that protocol. Not to say it doesn't work, because I read it. It helps a lot of people. But it just, maybe I wasn't on it long enough. But anyway, my test came back 6 weeks later, and I was positive for Lyme. I was positive for Coxsackie virus, and I was positive for EBV. But my co-infections came back negative. They put me on a protocol that they got from doctor in DC, and because they would kind of correspond, this neurologist and that doctor, about what to do for Lyme. So they put me on, it was minocycline, Flagyl, and I forget the third one, but it was 3 antibiotics. So I went on that towards the end of August, and I was like, this is it. I'm good, So I went on that, and I wasn't getting better. I was actually getting worse. And so I read about the herx, and if this was a herx, it was like the herx they were describing. It wasn't like spikes. It was just like I was getting worse and worse and worse. And I remember going to work in November. I had to go help some colleagues out. I had to go up and down stairs. I was tripping up and down the stairs. People were like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I was drunk. It was kind of cold. I was outside trying to work, and my hands weren't working right. And I was like, this is horrible. I decided to research this doctor in DC who's supposed to be one of the best in the nation. Right. While I was on lunch break that day, and they were actually able to get me in the next week, which is kind of unheard of for a Lyme doctor. And of course, they don't take insurance, so I had to pay out of pocket. So I went up to DC the very next week, took off from work, went to go see him, and I had an appointment with one of his PAs. So she was checking me out. I get there, she's checking me out, and she found some of my symptoms very concerning enough to have the main doctor come in, and he gave me an exam, and he was concerned enough too to where he believes that 80% of his patients can get better on one of his protocols, which is his oral protocols, but about 20% is what he says needs an IV treatment. Now, the insurance companies don't cover the doctor visits, but they were covering my oral antibiotic treatment, but they will not cover IV antibiotics.
Okay.
Especially long-term. So it was going to be over $50,000 for this treatment, which wow. I asked him, I was like, is this going to get me better? He's like, we don't know. And he also said that it was attacking my cranial nerves, and it looked like it was attacking my, like affecting my motor neurons.
So this was changing your ability to be mobile, period.
Yes, exactly. That was my biggest concern, was that, because my walking kept getting worse.
And even when you were mobile, you weren't really safely mobile, it sounds like.
No, it was really weird. I couldn't go up and down stairs. I had to be very careful. And I had listened to some of his this doctor's interviews before, and he said that the patients he has most problems with are these ones where the Lyme actually turns into like a motor neuron. So
it's a $50,000 treatment, which you chose not to do.
well, I was debating on it because it was just everything was kind of starting. It started off slow, but it was like things started getting worse and worse and worse. And then when I heard the word motor neuron, I started researching that, and that's ALS. And there's other types that affect the upper neurons, other types of, but usually it ends fatally.
Right.
And so I was concerned, and I talked to because my mom was very instrumental in this, and she was, wanting to know what was going on at every step of the way. So I let her know right after I saw this doctor. I was like, this is what he's recommending. And she's like, oh. And so we got off the phone, and it wasn't even 10 minutes later, she called me back, and she's like, me and your father would like to pay for this treatment. I was like, well, hold on. Let's, I want to research some other options. I was like, I'm not saying no, but I don't want you to have to pay this money, And so, so I did do some research, and I was doing research, and they had already scheduled me for a phone appointment, follow-up appointment in about a month and a half, and they put me on a different protocol, different antibiotic oral protocol for the time being. And things just kept getting worse. And so I got home and I did some more research, and I was trying to find, and I found out about this lady that was on another forum that I would frequent, and she had Lyme, and she was diagnosed with ALS. So she had found out about this clinic in Mexico that was having a lot of success, with people with Lyme and cancer. So I got, we were corresponding, and she was pretty kind of far along with ALS. She was slurring her words and having a lot of mobility problems.
Right.
So she ended up going, and when she was there, she had actually stabilized. She went there for 2 or 3 weeks, I forget. And their main treatment, everything works around this main treatment, is called hyperthermia. It's where they put you under, and they raise your body temperature up to 107 degrees, and then they give you IV antibiotics during that. Apparently it's supposed to work like 30-fold on you. Mm-hmm. And they do this, I think, 2 times. And so she just said she was stabilized while she was there, and she was leaving, and I had went ahead and I looked into it, and I talked to my parents, and I decided to go. So I went there in middle of December of 2017, and I was really excited. I get there, and I had sent all my medical records there, and they had seen one of my MRIs of the brain. It showed several lesions, and one of them was an active lesion on my brainstem, which was causing swelling on my brainstem. They said that I couldn't do the hyperthermia because I had swelling on my brainstem, and they were afraid that the excess heat could cause brain damage and even possibly death.
Well, that's pretty scary.
Well, it was just, it was an up and down roller coaster, because I felt like, this was going to be awesome. This is really going to help me out, and now they can't do it. Sure. So I had a great doctor while I was there. He was really awesome. So they did everything else that came with the protocol, but they didn't do this. Mm-hmm. And I cut, it was supposed to be a 3-week treatment, and I cut it a week short, and I came back actually on New Year's. I came back. My mother went with me there for support, and my wife, we have 4 kids, so she had to stay home with them. So, so I got home, and I decided, instead of going to DC, I was going to see a guy closer. And I went to see a guy that's in Raleigh that treats Lyme. And he put me on a very aggressive antibiotic protocol. And I was on that it was 5 antibiotics and an antiviral. And that put me out of commission. Like 2 weeks on that, and I was basically bedbound. And I was I'd never been so bad.
And was this IV or?
No, it was oral as well. And I just couldn't afford IV, and especially after this Mexico trip was pretty expensive too. So I was like, this has got to do it. So I was too sick to make the follow-up appointment with him, so I did it by phone. And I expressed my concerns. I was like, I feel like this is killing me. I don't feel like it's making me any better. And he tried to, he was like, even if you were one of my own children, this is what I would want you to do. He's like, I really think you should push through this. And I decided not to. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I just, in my gut, I felt like it was making way for fungus and parasites and all this stuff just to kind of flourish while it was killing all my good bacteria. So I did some research and found out about this organization called Mission 22 that helps out military veterans who are in war. And I was in Iraq in 2003, 2004. And so I got in contact with them, and they sponsored me for this hyperbaric treatment.
Oh, okay,
which
good.
is what, I don't know if you know hyperbaric, but they put you in this little chamber, and it's like you're going underwater. It like compresses this 100% oxygen, and this oxygen just feeds you. And I did 40, they call them dives because it's like you're going underwater. Mm-hmm. I did 40 sessions, 40 dives, and I actually was feeling really good. I was feeling really good.
That's a big comeback from all those antibiotics.
Yes. And I was feeling really awesome. But I knew after 40 that was going to be it. So I had to figure something out. It was about not even a week, not even 2 weeks after I finished with that therapy, I went downhill really fast. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to go back on antibiotics. I just don't know what to do. I was just at a loss. I prayed about it, and I was looking different things up. I was actually looking into essential oils to see if maybe I could like take some essential oils, and that's what I was fixing to do. And then I read about Ellie LaBelle, and she, for those of you who don't know, she was diagnosed with Lyme. I think it was at the time, and maybe it had been like 20 years before that. And she had done all the antibiotics, saw all the Lyme doctors, and she would actually go into remission, and every time she would relapse, she would get worse and worse. So this went on for about 15 years, and apparently she was saying, she had basically, her organs started failing. And so she moved to California, and she was there with a caretaker, and she went out one day just to go for a walk, and she could barely walk. And so her and her caretaker were walking, and she was leaning up against this wall, and I guess these Africanized honeybees, and they came out and just swarmed them, and her caretaker ran off, and she just couldn't run. So she fell and got stung by like hundreds of these bees. And when it was all done and over, she went back up in her room, and I guess she had went into anaphylactic shock when she was younger from a bee sting. So she figured she was dead. She didn't die. She went into septic shock. And I think she said it was like 3 days. She had this brain fog for years, and she was able to think clear for once. And so she started experimenting with bees, and ended up, now she's doing well, and she came up with this protocol for Bee Venom Therapy. And I was like, I wonder if this is it, because I've heard of BVT on the forums, and I thought people were crazy. I'm like, you're stinging yourself with bees? Like, this is insane. Why? I just thought it was, silly. And but there was a guy at my church, and I was telling him about it. And this was before I decided to do it. And he said, he was an older guy. His dad, who had passed away years ago, had kept a couple beehives, and he had really bad arthritis. He said whenever his arthritis would act up, he would stick his hands in the bees. Not like, he would just stick them in there, let them sting. He said his hands were good for like 5 or 6 months. I was like, that's it. I'm doing it. Because I'd read about Ellie LaBelle. I was like, I'm trying this out. And so I did it. And what I did is I joined the Facebook group, and I posted my concerns that I wanted to do it, but I had some concerns. And Ellie LaBelle, there's thousands of people on that group. She was the first one to respond within the hour. And she was like, very, she said, not only will this be better, because, at that point I was like, maybe I did need antibiotics. I was like thinking about kind of toying with just maybe IV antibiotics. Maybe it wouldn't be so rough on my stomach. And she was just like, this is going to be better than that. And right then I ordered my stuff and came in. I started stinging. I think it was in August I started stinging, and I ended up at 10 stings. And so I ramped up relatively quickly. I probably shouldn't have done it as quickly as I did, but I ramped up, and I've been at 10 stings now for about going on 20 months.
Compared to when you started, how do you feel right now?
Oh, so much better. Some days I don't even feel it. I think some of the motor issues are permanent, but it's fine. I mean, it's fine because a big thing for me was fatigue, and I thought I was going to die. So I thought that the issues were going to keep going south. So it's just a lot better. And I posted on our group last night that how my daughter we were talking about it, and Lyme came up, and my 11-year-old daughter was like, I forgot you even had Lyme. And she's like, you haven't, it doesn't seem like you've been sick for a long time. And that wasn't the case about a year ago. Even after I started seeing improvements, it took a while, and it seemed so gradual. And then to hear that from my daughter just really was like,
that's amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
She's concerned about it. It's not in the back of her head that
Mm-mm.
something's wrong with Daddy. That's amazing. That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So you've done it for 20 months at 10 stings.
Yeah.
Tell us about the beginning of it. The herxine and that kind of thing. Did you, like for me, I know it's only been 6 months, but the ups and downs of that compared to before, at what point did you know this is absolutely the method
Well, once I started, I told myself, this is what I'm sticking with. I mean, no matter what. So I had made up my mind. This is what I was going to do, unless I started going into anaphylactic shock or something like that. So, but it wasn't until after my very first day, I was kind of slurring my words because it was heavily neurological.
Right.
Still is. I still have certain days where I'm not, like today's kind of weird. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be, but I would kind of slur my words. I would get really stiff. My walking would get really bad. Tinnitus, really loud tinnitus. Yeah. And I still get that a lot. That's my main thing after I sting sometimes. That's my main issue is sometimes about an hour after I sting, my tinnitus gets really loud. But it felt like what I had read about a herx. I didn't get the flu-like symptoms, but I would get something, and it would peak, and then usually sometime the next day I would get back to baseline. And so that lasted, and I started in August, and by October, the middle of October, I got my first real gain, my first real breakthrough, like my fatigue.
What was that?
My fatigue started dissipating tremendously. And that was a big thing with me, was fatigue. I could actually do stuff at night, and so the fatigue started lifting, and I'd have days where my vision would get better, and, my headaches started getting less, and now I couldn't tell you the last time I had a migraine. It's been a long time. So it's
so
awesome.
How about, so initially that was your first thing, was really the fatigue and so forth, with more of the mental clarity. How about the kind of the knee pain and that you were talking about? And,
the knee pain, I get a little bit in, like I'm not out of the woods yet. I know, this is Ellie says this is about a 2.5 to 3 year protocol.
Right.
So I still get periodic knee pain. Some days I'm a little more tired than others. My memory is getting better. I'm going to school full time, which I wasn't able to do before. And I had a surgery. I didn't mention this, but I had a surgery on my neck last November, and that caused a little bit of a setback. But I'm better now than I was even before. And before then, I got to the point where I was running a little small coffee trailer in the morning and just kept it up. And I came out of the slump and better than ever. I feel awesome.
That is so wonderful. So would you say, what percentage would you say you are improved? I mean, obviously you're at school learning, your brain is working.
Yeah, I still got some issues. Like I said, I think some of the walking issues are probably here to stay.
Let's think about it. Your
Yeah.
brain obviously is back in the game.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
And you're not as fatigued. So
not as fatigued. The
that,
only I'm having some circulation problems that I'm working on. I've had high cholesterol. No matter what I do, my LDL is just always high, like 150. And I just don't know what to do to get that down. And I don't know if it's something because I never was tested for cholesterol that I can remember
right.
before all this that happened. So I don't know what my baseline was before this. But yeah, just stuff like that. But yeah, the fatigue was a big thing.
So you've been able to really participate with the kids again and
Hmm.
whole
Absolutely.
life, and
Yeah.
now it's just kind of a minor blimp
Yeah, it is.
instead of,
I'm not going to be running any marathons, but I mean,
but you're exercising and
yes. Yeah,
moving
yeah.
forward, and you can look at it and say, I have a future here.
Yes.
And that's
Definitely.
absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to add, or you want to share about this journey with us? Is there any questions? If anyone has any questions, please type them into the chat for us.
We do have one. It looks like, hold on.
The question for you, Stephen, is
Mm-hmm.
what is your diet like, food-wise? And how did that change with Lyme? Like in the beginning, could you eat all the food? Could you not eat the food? You know, some people have really severe food reactions.
Yeah.
So did you
Yeah.
have an issue with that?
I did. I had found out through this process that I've got, apparently, I got a gene from my mother and my father that makes you more susceptible to celiac disease.
Okay.
So it's a weird process to see if you have celiac. They, you know, because I just cut it out. And to test you, the doctor wanted to do an, I think it's called an endoscopy.
Endoscopy?
Yes. But he said you've got to be on, and he wanted to do a test, and he said you got to be on gluten for so long. And I was like, I'm just. So I cut out gluten. I don't have gluten. I haven't eaten gluten in over a year. Sugar. If I have too much sugar, I feel like crap. Too much caffeine excites my nervous system, and that's not good either. I'll end up stiff. Last night, I had a cheat day. I made some like this banana cream pie for the kids, and so I had to have some. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, that might be why I'm not feeling so great today. But yeah, I try to stick with. I need protein first thing in the morning, and I usually get that with whey protein because that's it digests easily and fast. That usually gets me going. And I try to keep it balanced. I need carbs, but I try to keep them complex carbs
Sure.
because I do have issue with like hypoglycemia. I'm reactive
Mhm.
hypoglycemic as well.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely. I think that comes with the territory. If you're fighting Lyme, I think you need to do that. You need to change your diet.
So you just had sugar,
Yeah,
right? So how will you detox from that? You know, what's your go-to for detoxing from that? And I think Greg also had a question
yeah,
about the tendinitis. So when you do go off a little bit,
yeah,
your diet, and you end up feeling a little bad, and I do the same thing. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling great. I think I can have that, and then
hmm
like, I shouldn't have eaten that.
yeah.
How do you, what's your go-to detoxing for it?
The best detox for me is heavy hydration, and I do contrast showers like hydrotherapy. I think that helps out a lot. I get on a bike. I've got a bike and a little stationary machine, and I just try to sweat it out. And
Okay,
that's what I do for.
so the contrast shower is hot to
Yes.
cold, and then
Yep.
spread it out on your bike and
Yeah.
hydration. That's great. Great.
Yes. And
So,
that's basically what I do for detox.
and then the tendonitis, Greg's asking, you know,
Yes.
how bad is it? Is it always, you know, compared to obviously before it was pretty
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Now you said you still have a little bit of it. Is it mostly like right after you sting? Because I know like when I sting, it can make my symptoms more acute as they
Yeah.
heal.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
not sure
Yeah. That's when it's the worst. It's the worst is about an hour after I sting. That's the very first symptom I get is I know it's coming because and it's not always really bad, but like today because I stung this morning. But even if I'm tired and I don't sting, I get tinnitus. It's always there. It's not as bad as it was before, except after I sting, a lot of times it will come back and it's like a pulsating.
And is it relative to whether you're at the top of your neck, or is it worse when you sting high, or not relative?
I'm not really sure.
My
I guess it is, because I'll do cranial on my cranial nerves. When first off, those hurt really bad, and but I'll get really loud tinnitus then. So I don't know if you ventured off your back yet.
I have accidentally.
That's right. You work with bees, so you've probably been stung everywhere.
Accidentally, I got one right behind my ear, and I was like, that is worse than any 10 stings I've ever had on my back.
Yes, it is. It is. It's like up here is this really bad compared to the back. I mean, the back hurts bad enough, but up there, I had a crown sting, and man, oh man, I almost went through the roof.
Well, I'm looking forward to that in this adventure for sure.
Oh yeah, it's fun stuff. My kids laugh at me because I hoot and holler some days. And I just sit there and giggle.
Yeah, my husband said we should record it because I'm like, ouch, that hurts, ouch, that hurts. But it's healing, and that makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
Handle a little bit of a sting.
Absolutely.
Makes it so worth it. And anytime I have to have this little ritual beforehand, I'm like, healing, this is healing, this feels good, this feels good. And then you're like, ouch, this really hurts. It's okay, it's okay.
Yeah. You just get through it, and then you're like, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It took me about the itching phase for me. That was one thing I was going to ask. When you'd sting, the itching was incredible for me.
I'm still itching, for real.
Oh, really?
Yes. I don't know why I'm still itching. But that was one of my Lyme things. Like, with Lyme, I always felt itchy everywhere. And so I think that maybe that'll take a little longer for me.
Yeah.
Because it was one of my Lyme symptoms.
All
right, so we've got Arlene wants to know how often you sting and how long did it take you to get 10 stings. And I know you said you got up to 10 stings pretty quickly.
Yeah, a little quickly, more quickly than I probably should have done. That's another thing I would.
3 times a week, right?
Yes. So it's 3 times a week. And it's depending. Sometimes I have to wait a little bit longer for the bees. So it's not like a set schedule like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's just say it is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I run out of bees and I don't get them till Tuesday or something. Then it's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I don't wait but so it's 3 times a week. And it took me 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
I would recommend people go, don't rush. I felt like I needed to rush it. So I did, and
that's okay.
I didn't do too well. It was rough. But yeah, some people I read, it takes some months to get up there, like,
right.
I think I've read about somebody it taking them like 6 months to get up to 10 stings. So.
I already felt so bad. I couldn't feel any worse.
Exactly. So you're just like, what the heck, right?
Absolutely. All right. So I think we're not going to go over the protocol, but if anyone wants to know the protocol that we're following, it's on the Facebook page, Ellie's Facebook page. And you can just send us a message and we'll send you a link to that so that you can log on if you're not already there. But we just want to share the adventure and the journey. We are so thankful that you, Stephen, have been willing to share this with us. I know that it can be hard to talk about Lyme and what you went through and kind of relive all those moments before Bee Venom. And so thank you for sharing that with us.
No, thank you guys. Thank you and Jason. You all have been a godsend.
Well, we are so happy to help, and I look forward to the next, you've got about a half a year to a year left. And I look forward to revisiting and seeing the progress that you've made between then and or now and then. And then we can compare notes again. Yeah,
because I'm sure you're going to be doing really well with that.
Well, I hope so. I don't know that I'll be rappelling down rocks or anything, but I think it's going to be fabulous.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll be back. So thank you. And everyone have a fabulous night and take care of your bees.
You too. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.